Welcome to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast with Phil Graham. We help you master Facebook ads and give you an unfair advantage over your competition. Are you ready? Let's go.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast, episode 455. I'm Phil Graham. Today, I'm going to be talking about how often you should be changing and refreshing your Facebook and Instagram ads. A lot of people get this wrong. If you search on YouTube or Google or ask AI, you'll hear all kinds of things. Sometimes people will say every 7 days or every 2 days. But a lot of times, that kind of advice can create more problems for you and might even be costing you time and money. There's not a universal refresh schedule for your ads, so it depends on a lot of different things. So today, I'm going to talk about how and when I refresh ads so you can learn how to do it with your ads as well. So this episode comes out January 27th. I'm actually recording it about 5 days before that on Thursday, January 22nd, 2026. How has your new year been so far? I can't believe we're almost through January. I hope it's going really well. And I do have to mention, by the time you're listening to this on Tuesday, the 27th, the Seahawks, my football team, will either be headed to the Super Bowl or maybe I will be a sad guy that day. We'll see. We'll see what happens on Sunday. But I hope you guys are doing really well. And this episode, this topic is really important because so many people get this wrong. And so many people turn ads off way, way too soon. And others might be letting them run too long. And you don't want to be making those mistakes. But before we jump into the content, if you guys are looking for some help with your ads, with your business, there's so much noise out there and it is worse than ever thanks to AI. Although I love AI, but you got to use it in a smart way. And so there's a lot of bad information out there from all kinds of different sources about marketing, about ads, what's dead, what's not dead, and all that kind of crap. So if you are looking for some help with your business, with your marketing, with your ads, whether that's somebody to run your ads for you or somebody that can coach you one-on-one and teach you how to do it for yourself without being part of a groupthink kind of environment where the blind are leading the blind, but literally one-on-one, if you're looking for either one of those things, just go to my website, philgrahamdigital.com, or you can DM me on Instagram at philgrahamdigital. Whether it's done for you or consulting, let's connect. So I want to keep this short, sweet, full of value, and very actionable as usual. So let's talk about when you should be refreshing your ads. Now, first point is that there are lots of variables. So without knowing your actual ad account and running ads for you or consulting and coaching you, without that, I obviously can't tell you exactly what you should do because there's so many variables. But I'm going to share how I make decisions about our ads, and then hopefully you can use that with your ads as well. And if you need extra help, I'm here for you. So here is why the refresh the ads every X number of days rule is not good, in my opinion. Number one, it depends on your budget. Obviously, somebody with $1,000 a day budget is going to be refreshing ads much more often and quicker than somebody with a budget of $50 a day. So budgets matter. Number two, you've got different audiences and audience sizes. Some are large, some might be segmented and small, and different audiences and different ads will fatigue at different speeds. So you can't just say, oh, just refresh it every 4 days, because it's totally different depending on your budget, your audience size, and things like that. And so you've got some ads you might want to run longer and other ads you don't. And that's why I am completely against just saying refresh every X number of days. I think that is a recipe for failure. Time does not kill ads. Saturation might, but time does not. So you have to look a lot more than just how long they've been running. So let's talk about what can actually be a signal that it might be time to refresh or change an ad or some of your ads. So here, in my opinion, is some signals that actually matter, that actually can make a difference. So let's say you've got an ad and it's been running for a while, maybe weeks, maybe months, and the delivery's fine. You've been consistently spending budget on it. However, the response or the results have been consistently declining. And I'm not talking about like one day or even a week, but over a larger period of time. Let's say the results are trending down. That is a good reason that you might want to refresh the ad. It could be 2 weeks, it could be 2 months, it could be 2 years. Like I said, it's not just based off of time, but it's based off of these other things. So if you've got ads that have been running a while and they were doing good and they're not doing as good and it's consistently trending down, that's a good signal that you might want to change. Another good signal is frequency. So when you're running ads, Meta will tell you how often people have seen that ad on average. So if you've got a frequency of like 37, meaning, oh, in the last 2 weeks, it's been seen on average 37 times per person, that's not good. Hopefully you don't have numbers like that, but you want to look at frequency and see what that number is telling you and make sure that it's not too high. Now, in the last month, if they've seen your ad 2, 3, 4 times, that might be fine. That's not really bombarding them. But if it's a huge number in a short amount of time, that's where it's a good signal that you need to refresh, either refresh the ad or change the audience or both. Another good signal would be if your engagement is dropping. Let's say you've got an ad and the engagement is dropping. Maybe it's not even a sales ad. It's more of an ad that just kind of gets you attention. So you're not able to measure it by leads or sales. If the engagement is trending down, then that might be also a signal that it's time to refresh. And that's also very common in many different situations. And then the other signal I'll mention is just overall performance. Obviously, if the lead cost or cost per sale is getting way worse, if the click-through rate is getting worse, if the cost per click is getting higher, if all those things are happening, again, across multiple days or even weeks, not just once, then that's another good sign that it might be time to refresh. But please get it out of your head, this general timeline stuff. I know I've said plenty of times on this podcast because I have to give advice that will fit lots of different people, even though I always say that there's lots of variables and it might be different for you. But that's why I say in general, I might let ads run at least 2 weeks, if not more. But when I'm in an account, or if you're in an account, looking for these signals is even better. And this is something that you should really be following. Now, let's talk about some signals that don't necessarily matter. So the last few signals I shared with you are potential good reasons why you might want to change your creative. Let's talk about some things that are not. One bad day. If you've got a bad day, like I've had people come to me before and say, oh my gosh, this ad was bringing in X number of sales a day for weeks, and all of a sudden today we got almost nothing from it. Should we turn it off? No, that's insane. Like, unless you have an astronomical budget, one day is so little when you are looking at stats and data. You don't want to make that kind of a decision based off of results from just one day. In a lot of cases, I wouldn't even make it off of 1 week. I would in some situations, but not in a lot. And certainly not off of just one day. Another signal that doesn't necessarily mean you should switch your ads is if you have small changes like negatively, but you have low ad spend. If you've got low ad spend, it's going to take more time to cycle through more people in your audience. And you're going to get some fluctuation, especially towards the beginning of results. And that's completely normal in a lot of situations. So just because early on, oh, it did well for a couple days, but now it's starting to do not so well. Well, if you have a low budget, if you haven't cycled through that many people in your audience, it's probably not a signal that it needs to be changed, at least not yet. The next signal that's very common that people really mess up with is panic or fear. Maybe you just started running ads, or maybe you have been running them and then you scaled to a higher budget, but then it's kind of freaking you out because it hasn't started working at that higher budget. Well, you don't want to panic. You don't want to do it out of fear. You've got to give it some room to breathe and some room to work through the audience at the larger budget. And then the last signal would be someone else's refresh calendar. So whether it's a consultant or an agency or your own, just saying, hey, no matter what, every 2 weeks, we're going to change the ads. That is dumb. You definitely don't want to do that. Again, you want to do it not based off of time, but based off of these other things that we've been talking about. And then in terms of when you do refresh ads, a lot of advertisers make these mistakes. And I'll just go through them really quick. A lot of advertisers will kill ads that are still in learning mode. Now, there may be situations where you're right to do that, but a lot of times you shouldn't. You might be turning off a total winner, and Facebook's just trying to get more data, and then you're just shutting that down, making their job even harder, and then complaining because you're not getting results. So shutting ads off or killing them when they're still in learning mode is not always the right way to go. Another big mistake is just refreshing everything all at once. Very rarely should you be refreshing everything. There's going to be certain ads you might want to refresh, but just everything just to refresh? No, I would not recommend that. I would not do that. Another big mistake is rebuilding or refreshing entire ads when you may only need to do one small change. If an ad isn't working or if it's not working as well as it did before, most of it might be good. You might have the right framework. Maybe it just needs a different image or a different headline or a different hook at the beginning. But you're going to change the entire thing. You might be taking a lot of what made it work originally and getting rid of it. So be very careful. Try and change one thing at a time. So refreshing ads isn't necessarily rebuilding ads. It's adjusting and testing and then following the data. So to summarize, how often do I refresh ads these days? It totally depends. It could be days, it could be weeks, it could be months, it could be never. It depends on so many things like ad spend, audience size, objective, data. Here's the key though. Here's the key. I let the data and my experience and skill tell me when I should refresh ads. Not some generic number, not what somebody says, not the calendar, but the data combined with skill and context. And I recommend you guys do the same. So before you guys kill your next ad, ask yourself 4 questions. Have I been letting it run long enough, or is this a brand new ad? Is this ad still reaching new people, or has it already exhausted the audience? Is the message in the ad still relevant? And is the performance truly degrading over time, or is it just fluctuating? Ask yourself those questions before you make changes. My friends, I hope that was helpful. Episode 455 is in the books. I've got another great one for you next week. Until then, have an amazing week. And if you want to get in touch, philgrahamdigital.com is the website, or DM me on Instagram at philgrahamdigital. And I will talk to you on next week's episode. Peace out.
Thanks for listening to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast. Please remember to subscribe and share this with all your friends. For show notes, more tips, and to learn more about Phil, please visit philgrahamdigital.com/podcast.